Well, it's the first Friday of the month, first Friday of July, and the first Friday of every month, we feature something called What to Read with McNally Robinson Booksellers. We invite, these days it's two people. Typically it's been Chris Hall, the co-owner of McNally Robinson Booksellers, but for the last couple of months he's been bringing in Kathleen Bergen, who works in the children's department, to feature some kids' books since it is summer, and they'll be quote unquote reading more. Will they be reading more? Good morning. Absolutely. They're going to be reading more. Kids still read these days. That's a good thing.
They do.
And not just on their screen.
Nope, they don't. They're always trooping up to the kids section in the Grant Park store and all excited to get up there. So it's going
You guys
strong.
have a summer reading program still? You still have that thing going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
Tell us about it. Kathleen from the kids department. Welcome back.
Thanks.
He quickly I asked Chris about the kids book, and he just quickly swung the microphone over to Kathleen. All right, Kathleen, you're on. Tell us about the summer reading program you guys have going on.
Okay, so the summer reading program is a program to encourage kids to read over the summer because there is often a lapse in reading over the summer when they don't have like specific assignments or like things they have to do for school. Mm-hmm. So it's a program that we do where kids from a certain age, I think it's 8+, can buy books from us to take home and read. And then if they've bought a certain number of books, then we'll give them a prize. So we give them a stamp every time they buy a book. And after 3, they get a prize from our little prize bin. And then after 6, they get a free book under $10 to take home with them.
Wow. Well, I consider myself a kid still. Maybe I can do that. There's people who are older than me. I still have that youthful feel about myself. So maybe I'll come by. There's a lot of kids books that adults like to read too. We were just talking off air about Harry Potter, right? Yeah, and that's considered a kid's book. But I mean, a lot of adults have read that too, right? So you've brought in a couple books this morning. And why don't we start with, you want to start with the sad one first? And before we try to get people uplifted, what is the first one you brought in?
Okay, so I brought in The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. This is a book for older readers, I would say 13+.
Okay.
Because it is a thriller, so it gets a little dark and spooky. So it follows the story of this girl named Romy, who is on a spaceship called the Infinity, all by herself in space, hurtling towards the nearest habitable-looking planet, which she has dubbed Earth 2.
This is sort of a typical scenario, yeah?
Oh, yeah, totally normal.
An everyday thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she was not originally alone on the spaceship. Her parents were astronauts on this spaceship, and they accidentally got pregnant. And so she resulted, and unfortunately, there was a terrible accident, and she has ended up alone on this spaceship. So she is only 14, and she gets like transmissions from Earth every day via laser, which are mostly just text, but sometimes she gets some audio, and they are just sort of guiding her, and she is basically on her own trying to keep the spaceship in order and get to Earth 2. So the plot of the story focuses on a second spaceship called the Eternity, which has recently been launched, and because it has like better technology, it's going to catch up with the Infinity in about a year, and then the idea is that they will go together to Earth 2, and then she won't be by herself anymore, and that will be great. So she is communicating with the captain of this spaceship, whose name is Jay, and they seem to be getting along really well. She starts like sort of fantasizing about him, or like, thinking that he's this perfect person that she's going to like fall in love with and have like 3.5 kids and live on a farm on Earth 2, but obviously real life isn't like that, and some weird things start to happen, and there's a big twist that I can't tell you about.
Okay, so what do you think the moral of this story is? It's for kids, right? So there must be a moral. I'm thinking that, at some age, usually around late teens, kids have to strike out on their own a little bit, where they have to be given the freedom to explore.
Yeah,
I guess you could say, and this was her opportunity to branch out and move away from her parents.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of about that, but I would say more it's about like overcoming hardships and trauma and becoming like self-reliant. And not being too naive, but like learning to trust yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so there is a good moral behind that sad story.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. So the next one is actually, it's in your newsletter. It's called the Dreaming Revolution, Dream of the Butterfly Part 2, but you just told me it doesn't come out till July 17th, so we can't talk about that yet. But so this is the Part 2 of it. So tell us a little bit about Part 1.
Okay, so Part 1 is just called Dream of the Butterfly. It is a graphic novel. I would say that it's probably good for about ages 9 plus. It's meant for about ages 9 to 12, but there's not really a plus age limit on books, you know. It is a beautiful full-color graphic novel. It follows this girl named Tutu who gets lost in a blizzard. She gets separated from her group. It's not entirely sure if it's a school group or if it's like an orphanage. It's hard to say. But anyway, she gets separated and she ends up in this town on the other side of the mountain. And the town is populated by sentient animals who immediately freak out when they see her because there are no little girls allowed in the town and they all think she's very gross. So the rabbit secret police naturally come and pick her up and bring her to the emperor. And she is told that there's no way out of this town because they're stuck in eternal winter. So she starts to sort of
Is that
integrate.
Winnipeg?
Yes.
No, it's not Winnipeg.
No, it's not, but
No
it could
way.
be. She starts to integrate into the town and meet some people. And basically she's trying to get home. But in the process of trying to get home, she ends up making some friends and getting sort of embroiled in what's going on in said town. The art style kind of reminded me of Spirited Away. It's very magical and all of the anthropomorphic animals and the little girl going on an adventure. But it's definitely its own thing. It doesn't follow the plot of Spirited Away at all.
Sounds kind of like an Alice in Wonderland story where she gets caught up in this other world with all these crazy characters and
I would say it's definitely
full on fantasy.
Definitely reminiscent of that. Yeah, it is a fantasy for sure.
Okay, so those are the two children's books for July. What to read? We'll swing the microphone. Thank you very much, Kathleen. In conversation with Kathleen Bergen and Chris Hall now from McNally Robinson Booksellers. Chris, what other kids' books do you have?
Don't make me panic again.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to see you quickly swing the microphone away.
That's right. Well, I have 3 books, I guess, to add to that. The first one I was going to talk to is called The Good People by
Now that doesn't
Hannah
look like a
Kent.
beach read to me. That's like a 400-pound book that you try to lift
Oh,
on.
I don't know. It's yeah, it's 400 pages. Okay. But it's a book. Hannah Kent wrote a book last year called, or maybe a few years ago, called Burial Rites, which was a mystery set in Iceland that we did very well with. This one is set in 19th century Ireland, and it's a story about 3 women. The first one is the grandmother of a small child, and she's just lost her husband, and her daughter is not in the story, so she's raising this grandson herself. The grandson can't speak or walk, so there's something wrong with him. But she's trying to keep that secret because in Ireland at this time, there's that's not, I guess. Disabled people are not accepted and are a sign of bad luck and so on. And so she, Nora, hires a young girl, Mary, from a neighboring village who comes and helps and does a good job of looking after the boy. But increasingly, the pressure of bad luck in the surrounding lands, they got to find somebody to blame for it. So they blame this little boy. Accuse him of being a changeling and a bringer of dark magic, and then there's a witch doctor, Nance, who gets involved too. So it's a very exotic setting in many ways, and setting is really the strength of the book. I really felt like I was in this village in Ireland, and it's dirty and cold and so on, but it's also darkly lit and so you've always got the crackling fires with shadows, and I really got a sense of why these people would believe in ghosts and fairies and so on. Out of the corner of your eye, you see this shadow flit, and you believed that there was something there. And,
19th century Ireland.
19th century,
19th
sorry.
century Ireland.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's a very good book, very good setting. It's our featured trade paperback for July, 30% off. So
the good people.
Good, good
Yeah,
people.
well, that's why I've got the different cover. Cool.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I see that. Water Beetles, Michael Kahn.
Yeah, Michael Kahn is a Winnipegger. He wrote this novel this past year, and he last month won the McNally Robinson Book of the Year. So that's a big deal for us. So we've got high hopes for increased sales, I guess, for it. It's well worth reading. It's a fabulous book. It's if you have a sense that local books aren't as good as books from out there, this one is certainly an argument against that. It holds its own with any book I've read this year. It's set in Hong Kong, a wealthy family in Hong Kong, living life quite happily, but it's 1941 and the Japanese invade, and their life just gets thrown into turmoil, violence and starvation, and they hole up in their mansion for a while, but then they have to flee, and they get caught by the Japanese and interned in a camp, and then they escape. Well, variety of things that happen, and eventually they make it through, which is no surprise in the novel because there's two time frames. The narrator is speaking as an old man looking back, but it's a powerful book about when the world takes off in a direction that had nothing to do with you. And he says the biggest mistake in his life was being born at the time he was born. Literally had no control over it.
Michael, how old's Michael Kahn? Is he?
Not sure. I would guess 40s, maybe.
In his 40s.
Yeah, 50.
Okay. I've never heard of
It's
him
a debut novel, so it's the first one. But
it's debut novel.
Okay. Yeah, but you'd never know it. I mean, it's really, really good book.
Okay. So that's Michael Kahn, The Water Beetles, and we're going to sort of wrap this one up on a bit of a light, fun note, I guess
I thought I would lighten things up.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, actually, because it's summer, it's a beautiful day. Let's talk about some bright and sunny things, like how about some Provence?
Yeah, now this is a great summer book.
I just had a really good rosé from Provence yesterday, by the way, so perfect timing. We're going to talk about wine later after
I'll get into this. Because this is My 25 Years in Provence by Peter Mayle. Peter Mayle's famous for writing a book almost 25 years ago, likely, by A Year in Provence, and then he followed up with Toujours Provence and Encore Provence. He wrote some novels. So
single-handedly, responsible for their burst in tourism from North America. Anyway,
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. But he's a great storyteller. This book is a collection of anecdotes, is what I would call them. Very short chapters. None of them published before, but they tell the story of, literally, the first one opens with them discovering, he and his wife Jenny discovering Provence, and second chapter, discovering the village that they end up in. It literally happened by chance. They were on a holiday in the Côte d'Azur, and it was raining, and they thought, how do we escape this rain? So they drove a little north into Provence to find some sunshine, and then they just fell in love with the place. So they've been there ever since. But yes, he is a wonderful detailer of the food he eats, and the people he meets, and the wine he drinks. The
scenery, little cafes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a wonderful, I recommend reading it in the mornings in your sunroom or the evenings in your sunroom, like I have been doing. Pair it with a nice cup of coffee in the morning or a glass of rosé in the evening. Absolutely. It's a very charming, right? That's the word. It absolutely is. There's no getting around it. That's the right word for it.
Yeah, I love that kind of read. I mean,
sure.
it's not heavy. It just kind of, you kind of imagine, right? It really gets you imagining what life is like in other places in a positive way.
Yeah,
right? Not necessarily the sad things that happen everywhere, but there's good things that happen other places too.
There's good things, and there's foibles, and there's imperfections in people, but he deals with that too. But he deals it in it. That's just part of the charm. People, not everybody has to be the same.
Yeah, that's a good summer read for me. Peter Mayle. It's called My 25 Years in Provence. All right, well, that's the 3 adult novels and the 2 children's books as well. So thanks, Chris, and thank you, Kathleen, for coming by. Been listening to What to Read with Chris Hall and Kathleen Bergen from McNally Robinson Booksellers. We'll do another one the first Friday in August, so look forward to that as well. You guys have a wonderful month of July. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
You too, Michael.
Okay.